Commander Jason Carter stood on the bridge of Earth's orbital defense station, staring at the faint signals appearing on the main screen. The signals were not human. They were not friendly. They were not even familiar. They were alien. He felt a deep chill in his chest as the message replayed again in his mind. It was not from Earth, but from an old scout vessel belonging to another alien species long forgotten. The message was simple. Do not attack the humans, they will bleed, but they will never surrender. He had no idea who left that message or why it was recorded, but he knew it was not just a myth. Something about it felt true. Far beyond Earth, the Zareth Empire prepared for war. Their fleet was vast, their weapons unmatched, and their confidence unshaken. They had crushed countless worlds, burned colonies into ashes, and left entire systems empty of life. When their scouts intercepted the old warning about humans, they laughed. To them, it was nothing more than a story written by weak species who feared the unknown. They believed humans would be no different from others. The Zareth commanders prepared their invasion with the arrogance of conquerors who had never lost. On Earth, the atmosphere was tense. Jason Carter was not a man who panicked, but he knew humanity was not ready. Earth had fleets, yes, but they were scattered and old. The technology was improving, but compared to the alien weapons, they were fragile. Still, Jason believed one thing. Humans had something no empire could measure. They had willpower. He looked at his officers, Captain Laura Mitchell and Lieutenant Daniel Brooks. They were young compared to him, but they carried the same fire in their eyes. Laura was known for her fearless flying skills. Daniel had a sharp mind, especially with computers and codes. Together, they formed a team that Jason trusted with his life. The first days after the warning were filled with chaos. Governments argued. Some leaders wanted to negotiate with the aliens before they arrived. Others wanted to hide and hope the Zareth would ignore Earth. Jason knew both choices were useless. He had seen the transmissions, the overwhelming fleet numbers, the energy weapons capable of tearing space apart. Negotiation would only delay the inevitable, and hiding would mean extinction. He stood before the world leaders in a virtual council and spoke with a steady voice. He told them humans had only one choice: fight. His words spread across Earth. At first, many were afraid. People whispered about the futility of war. Some doubted the military, but slowly the fire spread. People remembered the history of Earth, the wars where humans had stood against impossible odds. They remembered soldiers who fought until the last breath. They remembered how humanity survived plagues, disasters, and endless conflicts. The old warning became a phrase repeated across cities and colonies. Humans will bleed, but they will never surrender. Jason Carter began gathering the fleet. Old ships from Mars and the Moon were pulled into formation. New weapons were rushed out of factories. Scientists worked day and night, testing shield designs and energy cannons. Volunteers signed up in record numbers, young and old, ready to defend their homes. Civilians who had never seen war picked up tools, welding armor onto ships. Engineers reprogrammed cargo vessels into makeshift war machines. Humanity was not ready, but they would not sit idle. Laura Mitchell trained her squadron in secret drills. She guided them through asteroid fields, teaching them how to fight not with superior weapons, but with courage and clever tactics. She believed speed and creativity could outmatch brute force. Her pilots adored her because she never asked them to do something she would not do herself. They practiced until exhaustion, knowing they would face death soon. Daniel Brooks worked in the dark corners of the system's communication grid. He was not a fighter like Laura, but his mind was sharper than any blade. He broke into old alien codes, studied transmissions, and tried to predict how the Zareth would coordinate their attacks. His hands moved fast over the controls as he built programs that could jam signals, confuse enemy sensors, and give humanity a small chance. Jason Carter trusted him, even when others thought his ideas were too risky. Far away in the cold darkness of space, the Zareth fleet moved closer. Hundreds of warships shining with alien energy advanced like a storm. Their commanders boasted about how quickly Earth would fall. They told stories of past victories where resistance lasted only days. They laughed at the idea that humans could fight them. Yet in the quiet moments, a few older aliens whispered about the warning: do not attack the humans. They will bleed, but they will never surrender. Their words were silenced by the arrogance of their leaders. Jason Carter stood on the bridge when the alarms rang. The first enemy ships were detected near the edge of the solar system. His crew looked at him, waiting for orders. He felt the weight of all humanity pressing down on his shoulders. He remembered the message. He remembered the faces of civilians building ships, of soldiers preparing for their first battle, of children who deserved to live free. He did not tremble. He spoke with a calm voice. He ordered the fleet to prepare. The ships of Earth moved into formation. They were fewer, smaller and weaker compared to the alien Armada, yet every pilot, every engineer, every soldier knew what was at stake. They were fighting not for land, not for power, but for survival. Laura Mitchell led her squadron to the front, her voice steady over the comms. Daniel Brooks whispered updates from the control deck, feeding the fleet information the aliens never expected humans to know. Families gathered on Earth, watching the skies. Some prayed. Some cried. Others stood in silence, holding hands, waiting. The fear was real, but beneath it burned a strange pride. For the first time in history, the entire planet was united. Every border, every difference, every conflict seemed small compared to the threat above. Humanity stood together as one. The Zareth fleet entered the solar system with thunder. Energy blasts lit up the darkness, tearing through space like storms. Earth's ships shook under the force, but they did not break. Jason Carter ordered evasive maneuvers. Laura Mitchell's squadron darted between asteroid belts, striking the enemy in ways they never expected. Daniel Brooks activated his jamming codes, scattering alien signals, leaving their formations confused. The battle had begun. Humanity was bleeding, but humanity was still standing. Jason Carter knew this was only the beginning. The war would be long. Many lives would be lost. But he also knew one thing with unshakable certainty. The aliens had made a mistake. They had ignored the warning. They thought humans would surrender. They were wrong. Humanity would fight until the end, and even then they would rise again. The first clash between the humans and the Zareth Empire happened on the edge of the solar system. Space was silent, but the silence carried a heavy weight as the fleets moved closer. Commander Jason Carter stood firm on the bridge of his ship, eyes fixed on the screen where alien warships appeared like dark shadows. He knew the battle would begin soon. He also knew many lives would be lost. But he reminded himself of the warning. Humans would bleed, but they would never surrender. The Zareth fleet was massive. Their ships were built like fortresses, covered in glowing shields and armed with weapons that could split asteroids apart. Their commanders believed this fight would be easy. They thought the humans would scatter after the first strike. They laughed as they moved into formation, confident in their numbers and strength. But Jason Carter was ready. His fleet was smaller, his weapons weaker, yet he had faith in his people. He looked at Captain Laura Mitchell leading the Vanguard squadron. Her squadron flew older fighters, patched together with spare parts, but she made them sharp and dangerous with her leadership. He also glanced at Lieutenant Daniel Brooks, who sat at his console, fingers moving fast as he prepared the electronic traps. Jason gave his first order. The humans attacked. The first wave of alien fire lit up the dark. Energy beams ripped through the void, slamming into human ships. Several ships broke apart instantly, flames bursting before being swallowed by the cold of space. The crews died quickly, but they died fighting. Jason ordered his ships to spread out. Instead of meeting the aliens head-on, they darted between asteroids and moons, using the environment as cover. Laura Mitchell led her squadron into the heart of the asteroid field. Her voice was calm as she guided her pilots through the maze of rocks. She ordered them to use hit-and-run tactics, striking the enemy when least expected. Her small ships darted like fireflies, lasers cutting across Zareth shields. She knew their weapons could not fully break the alien armor, but even small wounds were victories. Her squadron destroyed one enemy cruiser by striking its engines and escaping before the rest could react. The pilots cheered, their hope growing. The Zareth commanders were shocked. They had not expected humans to fight with such boldness. They believed fear would break them, yet the humans showed no fear. The aliens launched more ships into the field, determined to crush Laura's squadron. But Daniel Brooks was ready. He unleashed a wave of electronic interference. The alien communications broke apart. Their signals scattered and their ships drifted in confusion. Daniel smiled faintly, though sweat ran down his face. He had given humanity time. Jason Carter took advantage of the confusion. He ordered his ships to strike quickly, then disappear. Every time the Zareth thought they had humans cornered, the humans slipped away. Every time they thought the battle was finished, human ships reappeared and hit them again. It was not victory, but it was survival. Jason knew that was enough for now, but survival came with a price. Many human ships were destroyed. Hundreds of lives were lost in the first hours. Jason listened to the last cries of captains who stayed behind to shield others. He clenched his fist but did not falter. He repeated the warning to himself. They will bleed, but they will never surrender. Every sacrifice bought more time for humanity. On Earth, people watched the battle through transmissions. Families cried as they saw ships burn, yet they also saw Laura's squadron return alive, saw Daniel's tactics confuse the enemy, and saw Jason standing firm. Hope began to spread. People understood this fight was not hopeless. They realized the humans could stand against giants. Laura Mitchell became a symbol among her pilots. They followed her without question, trusting her instincts. She led another daring strike, this time targeting a supply vessel. The explosion lit up the field, and even though her squadron lost 2 more pilots, they returned with pride. She reminded her team that courage mattered more than numbers. Her words burned into their hearts. Daniel Brooks continued working without rest. He studied every alien signal, searching for patterns. He discovered slight delays in their shield responses, small gaps where attacks could slip through. He reported to Jason, who ordered the fleet to adjust their weapons. Soon, human strikes began landing harder. They crippled 2 more alien ships, proving Daniel's discovery was true. For the first time, the humans were not only surviving, they were winning small victories. The Zareth commanders grew angry. They sent orders to crush the humans at once to show them no mercy. Their ships unleashed waves of energy blasts, shaking the entire battlefield. Human ships trembled, hulls breaking, but they held on. Jason Carter kept his voice calm as he gave orders. He reminded his people they were not just defending Earth. They were defending their families, their children, and the future of all humans. As the battle stretched into hours, fatigue set in. Human pilots grew tired, their eyes heavy, their bodies weak. But Laura kept them together, her voice steady. Daniel's hands shook as he coded, but he refused to stop. Jason stood tall, refusing to show fear. Humanity was bleeding heavily, but the fire in their spirit only grew brighter. The Zareth realized the truth. The humans were not surrendering. They were not even slowing down. Every time the aliens thought victory was near, the humans returned with even greater force. The warning that had been ignored began to echo in the alien commanders' minds. Do not attack the humans. They will bleed, but they will never surrender. Finally, after countless hours, Jason Carter ordered the retreat. Not because they were defeated, but because they had survived long enough to prove a point. The human fleet pulled back toward Mars, carrying the wounded and the broken. The Zareth expected them to collapse in despair, but instead they saw humans regrouping, repairing, and preparing to fight again. On Earth, the news spread like fire. Humanity had faced the might of the Zareth Empire and survived. They had lost many, but they were still standing. Across the planet, people cheered. The phrase became louder, carried across every city and colony. Humans will bleed, but they will never surrender. Jason Carter stood in silence on his bridge, looking at the stars. He knew this was only the first battle. The war was just beginning. More blood would be spilled, but he also knew humanity had shown the galaxy something no one could ignore. Humanity had shown their spirit, and that spirit would never break. The war moved closer to humanity's heart when the Zareth launched their next attack, not at Earth but at the Mars colonies. The colonies were smaller and less defended, filled mostly with miners, workers, and families who had built their lives in the red dust. They were not soldiers, yet when the Zareth came, the colonies did not break. They fought with whatever they had, proving once more that the warning was true. Humans would bleed, but they would never surrender. Commander Jason Carter received the call for help from Mars while his fleet was still recovering from the first battle. Many of his ships were damaged and his crews exhausted, but he knew they could not hesitate. If Mars fell, Earth would lose more than a colony. They would lose hope. Jason ordered the fleet to move. His officers looked at him with tired eyes, but none argued. They all knew what was at stake. The Zareth believed the Mars strike would be simple. They thought the miners and engineers would hide and beg for mercy. Instead, they found men and women standing in the open, holding mining lasers and improvised weapons. The aliens opened fire, destroying habitats and burning the red soil, but the colonists fought back, turning drilling machines into weapons, blocking tunnels, and using the rocky terrain as cover. Every street, every tunnel, every habitat became a battlefield. Laura Mitchell led a squadron of fighters to defend the skies above Mars. Her ships were still patched together from the first clash, but she flew with determination. Her pilots followed her into impossible dives, striking alien transports before they could land. She refused to let the aliens touch the civilians if she could stop it. Her fighter weaved through enemy fire, her voice steady as she called out targets. She became the shield of Mars even as her ship took heavy damage. On the ground, the colonists showed the same spirit. Miners used blasting charges not for rocks but for alien machines. Engineers turned oxygen pipes into traps, setting ambushes in the tunnels. Families hid in shelters, but when the shelters were breached, even children threw stones at the invaders. They were not warriors, but they refused to kneel. Daniel Brooks worked from orbit, watching the battle unfold through streams of data. His hands flew across the console as he tried to break into the alien systems. He studied their shield frequencies, searching for weak points. Hours passed with no success. His eyes were bloodshot, his body shaking, but he refused to stop. Finally, he found something. The Zareth shields were not perfect. When they switched frequencies, there was a tiny gap, a moment when energy passed unevenly. It was small, but it was enough. Daniel rushed the discovery to Jason. Jason Carter listened to Daniel's report and saw the chance. He ordered the fleet to coordinate strikes during the shield shifts. The first attempt worked. A human destroyer fired at the exact moment Daniel predicted, and the alien cruiser's shield cracked. The next shot pierced through, tearing the ship apart. Cheers filled the human fleet. For the first time, they had found a real weakness. It was not just survival now, it was a fight they could win, but the battle was far from over. The Zareth pushed harder, sending wave after wave at Mars. Alien troops landed on the surface, armored and armed with weapons that humans had never seen before. The colonists fought with desperation, but they were pushed back. Jason ordered reinforcements, sending Laura's battered squadron to support them. She flew low over the surface, blasting enemy tanks and covering the civilians as they evacuated to safer zones. Her voice never wavered, even when her own ship was hit. She would not abandon Mars. In the chaos, Jason Carter made a choice. He transmitted a message to every colony, every base, and every outpost across Mars. His words were simple. He told them they were not alone, that Earth stood with them, and that surrender was not an option. His calm voice carried across the red planet, reaching soldiers, miners, engineers, and children. The colonists cheered, their courage renewed. They fought harder, holding every line with teeth and nails. The Zareth commanders grew frustrated. They had expected Mars to fall in hours, but the resistance dragged on. Their forces were bleeding. Their ships were being destroyed by the humans' new tactics. Their soldiers were bogged down in the tunnels where every step was a trap. The warning whispered again in their minds, but still they pressed on. Jason Carter knew they could not hold forever. He gathered his officers and explained Daniel's discovery. They had to use it to strike hard and force the Zareth back. Laura Mitchell volunteered to lead the first assault. She knew her ship was nearly broken, but she did not care. She told Jason that if Mars fell, Earth would lose its spirit. Jason wanted to stop her, but he knew she was right. He gave her the mission. Laura and her squadron dove into the thick of the alien fleet. Daniel timed the strikes perfectly, guiding them to fire during the shield shifts. One by one, enemy ships cracked and burned. The battle became a storm of fire and explosions. Laura's squadron was torn apart, but not before they crippled another Zareth battleship. Her own fighter was damaged, smoke filling the cockpit, but she refused to retreat. She led her final attack on a carrier, striking its engines before ejecting into the void. Her voice echoed in the comms, telling her pilots to keep fighting. On the surface, the colonists rallied. They saw the alien ships burning in the sky and knew they were not powerless. Miners charged with drills, engineers launched makeshift rockets, and families defended their shelters with fire and grit. The red dust of Mars turned black with smoke, but the human spirit burned brighter. Daniel Brooks sat pale and trembling at his console, continuing to feed data to the fleet. He had found a way to fight back, but he also knew the cost. Every successful strike meant more humans dying to make it happen. He hated the weight of those losses, but he refused to stop. He reminded himself of Jason's words. They were fighting for survival, and survival was never easy. The battle raged for days. Mars did not fall. The Zareth, shocked and furious, finally pulled back to regroup. They had lost ships, soldiers, and time. They had underestimated humans again. The colonists stood bloodied but alive, cheering as the alien fleet retreated. Jason Carter's fleet limped in orbit, scarred but victorious. Laura Mitchell was rescued from space, alive but badly injured. Daniel Brooks finally collapsed at his console, but with a faint smile. They had saved Mars. The galaxy watched. Rumors spread of the humans who refused to break, of the miners who fought soldiers, of the pilots who crippled alien warships, and of the weakness discovered in the Zareth shields. The warning became louder, carried from one species to another. Do not attack the humans. They will bleed, but they will never surrender. Jason Carter stood on the bridge, staring at Mars glowing red below. He knew this was not the end. The Zareth would return, stronger and angrier. The war would grow worse. But humanity had taken a step forward. They had proved they were not prey. They were fighters, and they would never kneel to any empire. The war soon reached the skies above Earth. The people of the planet had watched the battles from afar, praying their fleets could hold the enemy back at Mars. But when the Zareth regrouped and advanced once more, the final line of defense became Earth itself. For the first time in history, every nation stood as one. The people of Earth knew surrender would mean slavery or death, and so they prepared to fight. Commander Jason Carter stood at the command center in orbit, his eyes locked on the swarm of alien ships now entering Earth's system. They came like a storm, hundreds of vessels glowing with alien energy. His fleet was smaller, scarred from earlier battles, but the spirit of his crews burned brighter than ever. He spoke to the world, sending his voice across satellites and radios. He reminded humanity of their history, of their willpower, and of the simple truth. They would bleed, but they would never surrender. Factories on Earth poured out weapons day and night. Engineers stripped alien wrecks and rebuilt them into new machines of war. Cargo ships were fitted with cannons, shuttles were turned into bombers, and every scrap of technology was used. Farmers gave their metal for armor, mechanics worked in the streets to repair fighters, and children painted messages of hope on the sides of ships. Humanity was preparing not only with steel and fire, but with unity. Captain Laura Mitchell returned from Mars wounded, but she refused to rest. Her body carried scars, but her spirit was untouched. She took command of a new squadron, flying ships rebuilt from both human and alien parts. Her name was whispered across the fleet, a symbol of courage. Pilots who had never seen war wanted to follow her. She smiled at them, told them to be strong, and promised she would lead from the front. Lieutenant Daniel Brooks, still pale from exhaustion, continued his work. He refined his discovery about the Zareth shields, creating programs to predict their shifts with even greater accuracy. But he wanted more. He studied captured alien systems, searching for weaknesses in their networks. His fingers shook as he worked, but his mind was clear. He was determined to blind the enemy, to give humanity the edge they needed. The Zareth fleet entered Earth's orbit with confidence. Their commanders expected fear, chaos, and surrender. Instead, they found fire. Jason Carter ordered the attack, and Earth's skies erupted in light. Human ships, though smaller, flew with precision. They darted between alien blasts, striking at the exact moments Daniel calculated. Alien shields cracked and ships burned. The Zareth, caught off guard, realized the humans had grown stronger. The battle was fierce. Laura Mitchell led her squadron in daring strikes, weaving between enemy destroyers and crippling their engines. Her voice never wavered even when pilots around her fell. She pushed deeper into the alien formation, her ship battered but her will unbroken. Her courage inspired those around her, and more pilots followed her into the storm. Daniel Brooks unleashed his digital counterattack. He sent waves of interference through the alien networks, shutting down their targeting systems and scattering their commands. For a brief moment, the alien fleet was blinded. Jason Carter seized the chance. He ordered a massive assault, and the human fleet surged forward. For the first time in the war, the Zareth were forced back, but the aliens did not give up easily. They unleashed their dreadnoughts, massive ships bristling with weapons. Their cannons lit the skies, tearing through human vessels. Entire squadrons were wiped out in seconds. The Earth shook as debris rained down from orbit. Jason clenched his fists as reports of losses filled the comms. Yet he did not falter. He ordered his people to hold the line. On the ground, the people of Earth joined the fight. Cities blacked out their lights to confuse alien targeting. Volunteers formed militias, ready to defend their homes if the aliens landed. In hidden bunkers, scientists built weapons from captured alien parts, rushing them to the front. Even in the darkest moments, humanity refused to kneel. Laura Mitchell's squadron targeted one of the dreadnoughts. They flew into its shadow, dodging its massive guns, and struck at its weak points. Laura's ship was hit, alarms screaming, but she pressed on. She fired into the dreadnought's engines, and the explosion shook the sky. The massive ship drifted, broken, before exploding in a fireball that lit Earth's orbit. Her squadron cheered, though many had not survived the attack. Daniel Brooks pushed his systems to the limit. His digital strikes caused entire groups of alien ships to fire at the wrong targets. Confusion spread through the Zareth fleet. Jason Carter used the chaos to rally his people. His voice carried across every channel, calm and steady. He told them they were the shield of Earth, and that no alien would pass while they still lived. Hours stretched into days. The battle above Earth became one of the fiercest in human history. Ships fell by the dozens, but so did alien vessels. Every time a human ship burned, another pushed forward to take its place. Families on Earth watched the skies, their hearts breaking, yet their pride shining. Humanity was bleeding, but humanity was still standing. The Zareth grew desperate. They had expected victory, not resistance. Their commanders ordered an all-out strike, determined to crush the humans once and for all. Alien fire filled the skies, overwhelming the human fleet. Jason Carter knew this was the moment. If they broke now, Earth would fall. He stood tall, his voice strong, and gave the order to fight to the last breath. Laura Mitchell's battered ship flew at the front. She led the charge into the heart of the alien fleet, her squadron following without hesitation. They weaved through enemy fire, striking again and again. Her ship was hit, smoke filling the cockpit, but she refused to turn back. She shouted over the comms that Earth would not fall. Daniel Brooks unleashed his final program, a massive digital strike that shut down the alien targeting systems for precious minutes. The Zareth ships faltered, their formations breaking. Jason Carter saw the opening. He ordered every ship forward. The human fleet surged, striking with everything they had left. The skies burned. Alien dreadnoughts cracked, their engines exploding. Human ships fell, their crews sacrificing themselves to shield others. Laura's final strike crippled another alien cruiser before her ship was torn apart. Daniel collapsed at his console, unconscious from exhaustion, but his work continued to blind the enemy. Jason stood on the bridge, unshaken, as Earth's fleet pushed the aliens back. When the battle ended, the skies above Earth were filled with wreckage. Thousands of lives were lost, but Earth still stood. The Zareth had been forced to retreat, their confidence shattered. Humanity had bled, but humanity had not surrendered. The warning had once again proven true. On Earth, people wept for the fallen, but also cheered for the living. The world had united and survived. Jason Carter stood in silence, staring at the stars. He knew the war was not over. The Zareth would return, but he also knew the truth. Humanity had shown the galaxy that they were not weak. They were fighters, and they would never bow to any empire. The final battle came with a silence that was heavier than thunder. Humanity had won time at Mars and Earth, but the Zareth Empire was not finished. Their pride had been wounded, and their commanders were furious. They gathered the largest fleet they had ever sent against a single world. Hundreds of ships bristling with weapons advanced toward Earth. This time there would be no hesitation. The Zareth wanted to crush humanity completely, but humanity was ready. They had lost much, but they were not broken. They were waiting. Commander Jason Carter stood at the center of Earth's orbital station, watching the vast swarm of alien ships approach. His face was calm, but inside he felt the weight of every life depending on him. He knew this would be the final stand. There would be no retreat, no more chances. Humanity would either survive as a free people or be erased from the galaxy. He looked at the faces of his officers, tired yet determined. He thought of the families on Earth looking to the skies, praying their defenders would hold. He promised himself he would not let them down. Captain Laura Mitchell, though injured and scarred, refused to rest. She stood ready with her rebuilt squadron, flying ships patched together from both human and alien technology. Her name had become a rallying cry for pilots across the fleet. Even those who had never met her wanted to fight under her command. She told them this was their moment, that they carried the hopes of the entire world on their wings. Her voice gave them strength. Lieutenant Daniel Brooks was pale and weak, but he worked without pause. He had cracked the alien shields before, but now he pushed himself further. He built new programs to not only predict the shield shifts, but to control the flow of battle. His mind was sharp even as his body failed. He whispered to Jason that he could blind the alien fleet again, but it would take everything he had. Jason placed a hand on his shoulder and told him to hold on just a little longer. The alien fleet entered Earth's orbit like a black tide. Their weapons lit the darkness, firing massive blasts that shook the planet below. Human ships moved to meet them, smaller and weaker, but faster and fiercer. Jason gave the order, and the final battle began. The skies erupted in fire. Laura Mitchell led her squadron straight into the storm. She flew at the front, her ship battered but steady. She dove through enemy fire, striking alien cruisers at their weakest points. Her squadron followed, cheering her name as they destroyed one enemy ship after another. She became the spear of humanity, piercing the alien fleet again and again. Her courage gave others the strength to fight harder. Daniel Brooks unleashed his programs, flooding the alien networks with false signals. Alien ships turned their guns on each other, confused by his interference. Their targeting systems failed. Their communications collapsed. Daniel pushed harder, ignoring the pain in his body, his eyes burning from exhaustion. He whispered to himself that this was for Earth, for the people who refused to kneel. His work gave humanity precious minutes to strike. Jason Carter commanded the fleet with precision. He moved ships into positions the aliens never expected, striking where they were weakest. His calm voice carried across every channel, steady and unshaken. He told his people they were the shield of Earth, that the galaxy would remember their stand. His words kept their hearts strong, even as ships exploded around them. The battle raged without end. Human ships were torn apart. Pilots burned in the skies, and entire families on Earth watched their loved ones vanish in fire. Yet every loss only made the survivors fight harder. Humanity was bleeding, but humanity was unbroken. The warning echoed in every heart. They will bleed, but they will never surrender. The Zareth unleashed their flagship, a massive vessel larger than any city on Earth. Its cannons tore through human ships, its shields unbreakable. The alien commanders laughed, believing the end was near. But Jason Carter saw the truth. If the flagship fell, the rest of the fleet would lose hope. He ordered all forces to strike the giant. Laura Mitchell led the charge. Her battered squadron dove at the flagship, striking again and again. She shouted over the comms, her voice full of fire. She told them this was their chance, that Earth's future depended on them. Her ship was hit, alarms blaring, but she refused to pull back. She dove straight into the flagship's heart, firing her weapons until her ship was torn apart in the explosion. Her sacrifice crippled the giant, its engines burning and shields faltering. Daniel Brooks seized the moment. He poured the last of his strength into his systems, forcing a massive overload in the alien networks. The flagship's defenses collapsed, its weapons silenced. Daniel fell unconscious at his console, but his final act had given humanity the opening they needed. Jason Carter gave the last order. Every ship, every pilot, every weapon fired at the flagship. The sky burned as the giant cracked, broke, and exploded in a fireball brighter than the sun. The shockwave ripped through the alien fleet, scattering their forces. Panic spread among the Zareth. Their commanders, once confident, now feared the humans. They gave the order to retreat. The humans cheered, their voices echoing across the stars. They had won. The alien fleet fled, broken and humiliated. Earth stood scarred but free. Humanity had bled more than ever before, but they had not surrendered. The warning had come true, louder than ever. Do not attack the humans. They will bleed, but they will never surrender. On Earth, families wept for the fallen, but celebrated the living. The world had united, fought, and survived. Laura Mitchell's name became legend, remembered as the pilot who gave her life to cripple the enemy. Daniel Brooks was carried from his console, alive but weak, honored as the man who blinded the Empire. Jason Carter stood on the bridge, staring at the wreckage in the sky. He knew the war had cost them dearly, but it had also given them something greater. It had given them unity, pride, and a place among the stars. The galaxy watched in silence. The story of Earth's stand spread far and wide. Other species whispered the warning with respect. Humanity had shown that they were not weak prey, but warriors with unbreakable will. They would bleed, but they would never surrender. Jason Carter closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He thought of the sacrifices made, of the lives lost, and of the world saved. He knew challenges would come again, that the galaxy was dangerous and full of enemies. But he also knew one unshakable truth. Humanity had earned its place and no empire could take it away. Earth would rise again, scarred but stronger, and the stars would never forget the day humanity proved the warning true.